Welcome to Duda, the leading solution for SaaS platforms that are looking to add websites to their services. Let's say you're a music industry SaaS provider. Your solution stores customer data, and you'd like to leverage that information to offer websites that are automatically connected to it. You can do that easily with Duda. Our API is flexible, well-documented, and designed with application integration in mind. You can use Duda's widget builder to integrate your solution once and then add it to all your customized templates, automatically including your service in every new website built. All websites can be dynamically connected to your system so that when information is added or changed in your product, the websites are updated automatically. Let your customers edit their websites in a custom branded experience. And with Duda's roles and permissions, you can choose what they have access to and what they don't. And of course, all Duda websites are fully responsive and can send end-user activity back to your platform along with conversion-driving analytics. And we're just getting started. Talk to an expert from our partner team to learn all the ways Duda can fit in with your business today.
Another key element of digital presence for SMEs is being found. And in Africa, the process of being found can be quite complex, as achieving location data accuracy is an ongoing concern. We're fortunate to have Yogan Naidoo from Here Maps to tell us about the story behind creating an accurate location data ecosystem on the continent and the opportunities it opens up. Back to Charles to lead this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for that last session. It was great. Yogan, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so Here Maps. I think a lot of people are familiar with Here Maps, but before we get into sort of a discussion of location data and trends and opportunities, why don't you just tell us very briefly who Here Maps is and kind of what your role is very briefly.
Sure, thanks, Charles. So yeah, I'm responsible for the data acquisition and community engagement piece in the Middle East Africa. Very quickly, Here Technologies. So those of you may know, it's a leading location business that has over sort of 35 years experience. Predominantly, it used to be in mapping, historically focusing on in-car navigation. But over the last few years, we sort of evolved to a more tech company, and hence the name Here Technologies. Mm-hmm. So we now have a platform, an open location platform, which we've sort of built over the last few years. And this is offering a wide variety of location services, as well as APIs globally. Every
conversation, and then a part of the theme of this event is sort of, helping small businesses get back on their feet after a rough go, which we're not, depending where you are, isn't quite over. Talk about Here's experience and how you addressed the crisis, when things went into lockdown, businesses had to transform very quickly. What sort of solutions did you bring to market to help with that?
The timing was really great because, as I said, over the last few years, we built these APIs, SDKs, which sort of facilitated the tech industry from a location perspective. So what we did, and locally, there was not too much, to be honest, but from a global piece, we've had, Here played a fundamental role in terms of utilizing some of the anonymized at least, traffic probe data. This was to assist governments, healthcare sectors with tracking and tracing. So new analytic dashboards were created overnight in a few days. There's very good examples with NLXL, where traffic patterns were monitored. Live data from probe points were actually used for queuing. If you're familiar that all of us experience those long lines, which is quite frustrating in some cases. But there was really some cool applications that our partners used to use the probe data, the analytics, and it showcased mobile applications where people did not have to queue, or they at least knew the facilities around them, how long they would actually need to wait before entering the store. So they could actually plan the day better, creating more efficiency, etc. So that was some of the examples we used during the lockdown.
You talked about building this platform, APIs and all these connection points into it. Let's step back and talk about the location data ecosystem in Africa, Middle East, and kind of what is the state of play in terms of its development? Where are the big holes in order to sort of fulfill the opportunities involved? And kind of what pieces are missing, what pieces need further work, and kind of talk about how you see that, and then how Here is contributing.
Firstly, I would say maybe that from a location perspective, there's a massive potential still across the different sectors, yeah, both in emerging and mature markets. And the sectors that I'm talking about specifically maybe is the transportation, logistics, retail, telco, and media. Location plays a massive role in promoting efficiency, simplicity as well. And more industries are seeing the value of location. When we talk locally, as a location data is very dynamic. So there's always a greater need to maintain and ensure the accuracy. Take, for example, COVID situation, small businesses. A lot of them, they were estimating 30 to 40% of them would close because of the struggle in the economies and no business taking place. And from a mapping and location perspective, one of the challenges clearly is that we need to reflect reality, and we call that the reality index, which we embed and create as the backbone of our map and location services. So that in itself is a massive task to ensure that's maintained and the quality is there. Now, when we talk about specifically Africa, one of the major issues still today, one of the key challenges in emerging markets is quality of data. Once location services or any other service that matter relies on the underlying data, it's imperative we maintain a high quality standards when it comes to data. In mature markets, maybe if I use South Africa, in Africa as a mature market, perhaps to a certain extent Kenya, Nigeria as well, you do find that you are able to access some reliable data, but a lot of the times the data is just not there, or it's not to the sort of standard that we'd expect in the region. So that's one of the things that we were looking at and working with some of our suppliers to improve those data sets. I think we've worked in the past with several businesses. Actually, we've even met in the BigFive Summit last year in 2019 and worked with them on improving some of the data sets when it comes to quality and sort of a globally aligned standard in terms of location and its accuracy.
Maybe that kind of leads into the next part of the conversation. So if those issues are improved, if that data quality is brought up to the standard, whatever standard you think that is, what opportunities does that unlock for the region?
I think from whichever perspective or business you look at it, right? So what you put in, I think you've heard this a million times, what you put in is what you get out, yeah?
Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
The old saying.
Having high quality data would only make, any analytics dashboard you're looking even better, the decision making much better. If it's routing, the routing much better, several other things as well. The one thing I talked about is the quality. Yes, that's one piece, but also the availability of data, right? The other issue I find specifically in Africa is that there are very few providers actually providing quality location data out there. It's a very few sector, a niche market. There are many that provide data, but not to the expectation, as I said, the quality. I think allowing for more data to be available to not just mapping companies, but making it available, that would enable businesses with the small, medium businesses to have that ability to create some really unique offerings from a local perspective, to have something specific for their market as well.
You said something a few minutes ago, you kind of referenced your reality index. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes,
actually, I want to hear more about that. Talk a little bit more about what the inputs are to that and how it's used.
So I could go on speaking several hours about this from
okay, well, let's try to get the short version of it anyway.
But the short version, sure. So we call it the reality index, but that's basically the static map that we have been creating as technologies over the years to give you this high automotive grade quality map. That's why so many OEMs decide to go with us on a global scale. What it is, it's representing everything that you see in reality, from an address to a business that's operating in reality, from a salon to a major big conglomerate, and also having all the features that are required of it, indicating the real world. Yeah, that's most important and relevant to both consumers and people using data. So that's the reality index, and we have various methods of collecting this data, also through automation, through manual processing, and several processes running in the background to ensure that the reality index is maintained.
I want to get more into this notion of collecting more robust location points of interest and business location data. What role will sort of technologies, not my area of expertise necessarily, but my understanding is collecting location data, in some ways it's a boots on the ground phenomenon to some degree, in order to collect business location data and other things. Do you have any thoughts on sort of in the future how that can be done in a more technologically sophisticated and scalable way, where you can collect a lot more, new POI and business location data sets in a way that I'm not sure. I talked to companies that have these crowdsourcing models to collect this data, and other ways. And there's using apps and sophisticated technology to, process the data,
So
but the ultimate
definitely.
eyes on the store and that sort of thing.
That's sort of been, I think, the bread and butter. If you want to look at high quality data, it's on the ground. Is that scalable? Definitely not. It's very costly to do so. The maintenance is very costly thereafter as well. There are several automation methods ongoing. Crowdsourcing is one of them, specifically which you mentioned, but also, of course, something like robots, right? We have robots who are digitally identifying feature recognition and automatically recognizing characters, and the robot is actually punching in on a touch screen where the characters as well as the facility. So there's a lot of the AI piece coming into it as well going forward. Again, is that scalable? Perhaps not in the emerging markets, I don't think just yet, but in the Western markets, it's already happening, and where these robots can actually, if we call it from a geocode perspective, up to 160 points per an hour, which is phenomenal.
Robots that are attached. I'm sorry, I may be sounding ignorant here, but this is like top of the car driving around.
No, not a car. So what it is, as you know, we collect data via different methods, which is geolocated, LiDAR data, footage from cameras, 360 cameras.
Yeah.
This is a camera inside an office, which is working on the big screen, which has several functions, like almost like a car manufacturing machine, and it's touching the screen for the different characters and letters after understanding it. I actually do have some videos, so if you're keen, I'd be happy to share with you. But also, from the other perspective, what can be scalable, how do we see this going forward, is also there's several scraping tools, but of course, with the scraping tools, there comes a lot of trust, privacy issues, which you need to be very cognizant of when doing such an exercise. So you have to, you should ensure that you abide by all the legal restrictions and conditions when doing so.
One final question. Interested in the sort of partnership ecosystem that you're operating in. Talk about the kind of partnerships you're forming and what roles they play and what partnerships you'd like to see more of. Maybe it gives us a better sense of the ecosystem that builds this location data.
Two perspectives from this. So one is the partnership where we work with several data suppliers, people who have data, we work with them. As I mentioned before, we help them to even qualify and increase the quality of the data while using the data. We help them with the surveying process. In some cases, that's the partnership. And basically, that's acquisition, or from a business to business point of view, helping them work with their communities or their space or their ecosystem of crowdsourcing data. And then there's the other part where, we could always have in different parts of Africa already, resellers of our data, solution partners who would like to use our data and then create something unique for their ecosystem or their country, or several products for that. So there's always that. Those are the kind of partnerships from a crowdsourcing, data acquisition, and a business development piece as well. Those are sort of where we'd be looking at.
Final question is, how long is it going to take for the data, I keep using the word ecosystem, I find myself for overusing cliches, but for that ecosystem to fully form, is this 5 years, 10 years, or just is it much sooner than that?
I think it's already happening,
right, but
really,
to get to the point where you think it's fully developed. Yeah.
Oh no, so I guess it depends. I would hope to say 5 years from now, that's where it could be, and that could scale it all over, or every country have a partner, etc. That's where I would ideally like to see it, and I don't think it can be done sooner. There's got a lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do, but a lot of opportunity as well.
Definitely a lot of opportunities, yeah.
All right. Yogi, thank you very much for your time. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Great. All right. Well, we're moving on to our next session. Stay tuned. Thanks, everyone.